Welcome to the Hardcore MBA Podcast with your host, Erlend Bakke.
Hello and welcome to another cabin episode of Hardcore MBA. Today on the show, we have one of the winners of The Apprentice. If you haven't heard of The Apprentice, it is a show where you get in lots of business people or aspiring entrepreneurs, and they have to compete for, I'm not sure how long, but 3 months. And the winner basically gets a deal with, in this case, Alan Sugar. Mark Wright is the director of Clim Online, which has now reached £1 million in sales in its first 12 months, which is very, very difficult. In fact, I think it's only about 4% of all businesses alive today that actually are turning over more than $1 million. So £1 million is actually maybe puts you in like the top 3% of all businesses in the world. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. That's a fantastic introduction. We actually did 1.6 million in our first year on our 12th birthday. So hopefully that puts me in the top 1% where I like to be.
Absolutely. And just to sort of backtrack, where are you from, and how did you get to London?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Basically, I'm from a small country town in Australia called Armidale. There's only a few thousand people which live in the town. So I grew up sort of very humble beginnings, really. My parents were by no means poor, but very hard-working, very middle-class family in a small town in Australia. And so I started out there when I was very, very young, had a good schooling, and then decided when I was about 20 years old that I wanted to go on a bit of an adventure and do a world ticket. So I bought myself a world plane ticket and I set off backpacking. And after about a year of traveling non-stop, I had run out of money and I'd hit London. London was my favorite city when I was backpacking. I got here, I had 117 pounds in my back pocket, 2 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, no laptop or phone, and it's a pretty daunting prospect when you get to this expensive city and you've got no money or no belongings.
Yes. So where were you living at the time, and what did you do?
It's a good question. I was living in a hostel, a backpacking hostel in Victoria. It's called the White Ferry House. I'll never forget it. Basically, I basically make noodles that would last all week long because I didn't have any money. I think it was about 20-ish pounds a night to stay. So I had about 1.5 weeks accommodation to my name in the bank account. And essentially, I went to an internet cafe. I made a CV and I did the old-fashioned. I walked from Victoria in London to Hammersmith every single day up and down for just under a week, handing in my CVs and door-knocking businesses asking for job. And I think it took 5 days to get a job agreed with an internet marketing company.
I mean, 5 days is pretty fast to get a job.
Well, I think what people underestimate is when you are desperate, what you'll go to. When you've got no money, I think a lot of people take a long time to do things, especially things like getting a job or a career or with their hobbies and things, because there's no real pressure. But when you're about to run out of money, and if I did run out of money, I would have had to go back to Australia. So that pressure, that financial pressure and the stress I put on myself really made me move a lot quicker.
Of course. And how did you actually secure that job in the interview? How do you remember the interview here today?
Well, I do. I'd heard of the company. I was an internet marketing company, one of the biggest in the country. And basically, I door knocked them. They arranged an interview the next day and said, "Look, come in and see us. We think we're too young. Our hiring age starts at 27, and I was 22, I think, at the time." I just turned 22, so I was well under their sort of minimum employment age. for a consultant. But they said, well, the sales manager is going to be in this office tomorrow. Come in and see him. And basically I went in and I said, look, I know I'm young, but I'm the hungriest sales guy you'll ever meet. I understand internet marketing. I'm really passionate. And I said, if you give me an opportunity, I'll be your top rep out there in 6 months. And I think I pushed it so hard that he had to roll the dice on me. He gave me an opportunity, and I was very grateful for that because I learned a lot at that business and I exceeded exceptionally, and it probably gave me a lot of the foundations and tools I've got now, and it helped me go on and win the Apprentice. And I made a lot of business connections through that job.
So sales, is that something you've always done, something you've always been interested in?
Yeah, I think I hated school. I really didn't get on well with school, and my mum and dad owned a sports shop, and I used to plead with them to let me drop out of school and work in the sports shop. They didn't let me. They made me finish my schooling. But basically, every day I'd finish at 3:30 from school. I'd be in the sports shop by 3:45, and I'd work there till 6 or 7 every single night, and I'd work there all weekends. And basically, there was a computer system which would track the best salesman who could sell the most shoes, the most cricket bats, the most footballs. And I used to win on everything every single day. I'd come from school and I'd beat the full-time staff that had been working all day on the top sales. And I didn't have to, it didn't matter how I got my work done. I had to be the top salesman when I left every single day. And we weren't even on commission. It was just the fact of knowing I was the best of everyone. And whenever I was put in an environment where I was measured on a ladder versus somebody else, or colleagues, I always had to be the top. I don't know if it was instilled in me by my mum and dad, but it was really important. And I sort of just got an enthusiasm and a drive for, earning by selling and being the number one guy.
And when you were growing up, because your parents were entrepreneurs and had their own store, did they kind of teach you a little bit about money and how the world works, and how, if you have a business, you can do different things than if you are an employee? Were you trained in that kind of way,
Yeah, I was very lucky because neither of my parents have been to university. They're serial entrepreneurs. They own multiple businesses. My dad, owns multiple businesses. My mum, I grew up, sitting in her hairdressing salon. She owned multiple hairdressing salons and side businesses, and they weren't well educated, but they were very well versed in business, and they had a great respect for money and how hard it is to earn money, and what it's like to employ people and work with staff. And I came from a household where both my parents owned their own companies. They weren't employees. And you grow up with a different mentality. I think a lot of kids and a lot of people grow up working for the man, getting bossed around, getting told what to do. When you grow up in a household where both your parents are employers, you hear struggles and strains from the other side. So I got all my lessons and all my teachings from the other side, knowing what it's like when a staff member doesn't turn up because they're ill, wanting a pay rise, people stealing from your store, times being tough, times being good. And you get used to a different kind of stress and a different kind of upbringing than one can I imagine if you live in a household and your dad's worked for BT for 30 years. You'd be hearing very different stories around the dinner table.
So every dinner basically was a sort of more or less a mentoring session without you actually knowing about it.
Yeah, I think, and I think I always wanted to go into business to impress my folks that I could go and do what they have done as well. I think, and it gives me something to talk about at their level. I don't really remember the good times so much, but I always remember the stress of the bad times. Both my mum and dad's businesses would go through, very dramatic ups and downs. And especially with my dad's business, when it was on a down, I would always take it upon myself and really stress as a youngster. I'm the oldest child. And I used to feel that if times were bad for him, I'd have to help and work and get with him. And it gives you a real, respect for what it is like owning a small or medium-sized business and being, a director of a business, because there is a lot of stress there and a lot of pressure that not many people appreciate.
And did they have any habits or anything that they did to sort of deal with that? Or was it just like head on, deal with it? Anything you learned about dealing with stress?
It's interesting. My dad particularly is a very hard fellow. He's a very tough, hard-nosed guy, and he just hits everything head on, and he just turns up and deals with it and does a lot of exercise. Both my parents are very, very fit. and they're not big drinkers. No one smokes, all of this stuff. So they deal with stuff through exercise and family, but just by getting in and dealing with it, really. The only way you're going to deal with a problem is by trying to deal with it, not by laying under your bed sheets and hoping that problem disappears. And I think that sort of your own two hands is the way to deal with it. It's a really good attitude to sort of take with a business problem.
Yeah, I think that goes for all sorts of fears. So if you have, fear of heights, go skydiving. Like moving through your fears and dealing with them head on is typically the way to at least make the fear a lot smaller. I'm not sure it ever goes away, but you sort of make it less.
You did right. I don't think the fear is ever as bad as what you make it out to be in your head. I think a lot of times in business and in life, you spend all your time worrying about the things that could happen or go wrong. And generally, if they do, it's never as bad as what you thought. But most of the time, it doesn't actually go wrong.
Absolutely. So you're now working in this job. You're doing sales. You're good at sales. And how did you hear about The Apprentice? How did that come about?
Well, we don't have The Apprentice in Australia. There was a celebrity version, many moons ago, but we don't have The Apprentice how it is over here in the UK. And a fellow that I was working with at the company, he said, "Hey, have you heard of The Apprentice?" And I said, "No, what's that?" He said, "Basically, it's a show in the UK where an old man yells at you." And I said, "That sounds horrendous." And he's like, "Look, I'm going to go to the tryouts. Would you like to come along?" So he sent me the application. I filled out the application form and I went along to the tryouts. This is after being in London for 2 years. I was a much more stable position financially. I was living in a flat and I was in a very good position to give it a go. And I'd also had 2 years good work experience in the country. So I went along to the tryouts, and the Apprentice tryouts are literally the most grueling process that I think I've ever been through in my life. They're very, very full on. They're long days. They're not much food, not much water. Really stressful environment. TV cameras are on you. I'd never had TV cameras on me in my life. And you're with, I think in my year, 55,000 people tried out. And they took 20. So there's a lot of people fighting for very few spots.
So that's actually, so the tryouts are an elimination process where they try to get people out, like they will do difficult things.
Yeah, they'll do difficult things based on multiple facets of a business person or a personality type. So they'll test sales acumen, business acumen, written language knowledge, mathematical ability, political knowledge, and then there's a lot of character-based tests to really put you and see reaction under pressure and under scrutiny. And it was a very interesting process because obviously there's been a lot of psychological thought go into how the tryouts are structured. And I thought it was really interesting to see how different people broke down under pressure and at what elements they broke down. And, it's great that I was able to get through sort of, 50,000 people over so many different areas. But boy, it was a bit of a minefield.
That's nearly 1% of the UK applying, isn't it?
Yeah, it is full on. And I've never seen anything quite like it. It was kind of just like, hundreds and hundreds of people piling in here, all dressed in suits, all dressed in sort of frocks. I didn't realize how popular the show was for someone that was just sort of popping up, rolling up sort of for a bit of a fun with a friend from New Zealand. It was a real eye-opener because some people were so nervous, and there was people from sort of 17 through to 50 years old there. Like, it was just such a vast group of people, and it was literally an incredible thing just to be a part of and see that the structure in which they've sort of applied to it. It was incredible.
Can you describe some of the psychological tests that they did where you see like the most people break down?
Yeah, well, I can't go into it too much because I'll get in trouble, but I'll give you one that I thought was incredible. And I tell this story a lot in my talk. So basically I got called back, and I think I'd made the final 1,000 people. And essentially they break you into groups of 12. And the challenge is you go into groups of boys and girls in groups of 12, and you have to set up IKEA furniture. And the IKEA furniture was boxed up, and if I don't know how well you know IKEA furniture, but it's impossible.
Well, I'm Norwegian, so I've got to know it. We grow up having to build these things, it's
they're a nightmare, really. And that's the challenge.
okay.
You've got 12 people trying to set up something you would normally set up on your own or with one other. We got a desk that would take 3 hours to set up. On the instructions, it said, estimated time of setting it up is quite a big structure, 3 hours. But they gave us 20 minutes to set it up. So you've pretty much already got an impossible task ahead of you, but you've got 12 people trying out for a TV program. So they're all trying to show off, show leadership, use business knowledge, use business skills and language, and they're all arguing and trying to have a character to themselves as well. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen unfold in front of me, just how different humans react under pressure. And essentially, I was the project manager of the boys' team. We got about sort of 17 minutes in, and it was such noise and confusion. And I was trying to control it the best way by, one-on-one management and trying to sort of set objectives. But 17 minutes went by, and we were literally putting the lid on the table to a complete structure of what was, I thought, an impossible task. And as we placed the lid onto the desk, the producer came over and kicked the desk into near enough 150 pieces. He literally had a pair of work boots and smashed it up into hundreds of pieces. And they did the same to the girls' desk that was next to us, and they just smashed it, essentially. And what I noticed is many of the guys just went mental, started swearing, like, why the hell did you do that, this, that, and the other? And a lot of the girls started crying, and it was literally because we had an impossible task. We got ever so close to doing it, and then they take that end goal away from you. And a lot of the girls cried, a lot of the guys got angry, and they eliminated those people. But what I did notice is there was a small portion of people that, even though we were going to lose the task and not complete it per spec, we went just back to work even though we'd already lost. And those people went on through to the next level. And I think I always tell that story because I think it was obviously there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And there's only a small portion of people, even at the elite level, that even though they've lost or they're not going to complete something, are able to continue anyway.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting experiment.
Yeah.
So basically, it's the same with like when they test the Navy SEALs. Like the people that are usually like cocky and very loud in the beginning. So in the beginning phases of the BUDS training, which they have to go through, and the people with tattoos and all that, they usually get weeded out quite early. And it's typically like the calm people that just keep on going, that like have their wits about them. They usually pull through. They become like the 8% or whatever of the people that make it.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch sort of the test that they had, and I found that just as fascinating, just watching the things as going through it, because we use a lot of the techniques they used for the Apprentice now in our business for recruitment. Just to see people's mental capability, how they survive under pressure, how quick they can think on their feet. And because I think, that's years and years, there's been 11, 12 years now of The Apprentice, they must have those tryouts pretty much ground to find the most suitable people.
And in terms of what you've achieved, that takes a lot of confidence. How and where does your confidence come from, and is that something other people can learn?
I think you can learn confidence, and I didn't think you could until I'm sort of at the age I am now, because when I first started this business, I didn't have the confidence that I do now. And I think that you get confidence through knowledge of what you're doing. If you can become an expert in your field or an expert in whatever you're doing, you can have confidence knowing you're the best, you're in the top percentile of the people in your field. And people generally lack confidence because they lack knowledge. And so what I say to people is, if you want to start a business, always go into something that you know, learn it better than everyone else, keep self-teaching and self-learning, and you'll be successful.
Yeah, like do the repetitions, do the work, get to a place where you are confident because you've practiced so much.
Yeah, exactly. I think people are really lazy nowadays. We've got a society of people that, it's fixed to the 9 to 5. They come in, they do the They do the smallest amount that they have to when they head home. They don't do any self-learning. They don't do anything to better themselves, and yet complain that they're not confident or excelling. I think that, you know, you've got no one else to look at other than yourself and what you're doing and your approach to things.
Yeah. I've noticed on the screen here that I've gone all black. I'm gonna try to move over here and see if there's some more light on me. This isn't my usual recording place. So
the whole time, is that weird?
Sorry?
I haven't been able to see you the whole time.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I can see myself.
Oh, fine. As long as I didn't even know you were there. Sorry.
Okay. So when it comes to The Apprentice, it's typically like these. What are they called? Well, these shows. They will get like different types of personalities, and they want them to clash on screen, like because that became that's more entertaining. How did you maintain your psychological wits about you and stay focused on the goal throughout the show? Because it's easy, like you can do like an hour, right? You can you do a day, but like when pressure is put on you over time, it becomes more and more difficult. So how did you psychologically manage to stay focused?
Good question, and I think it comes back to my sales background of always wanting to be, you know, number one or top of the tree or you know, at the top of my field. I was put in an environment in which I thrived in, and it was a competitive environment. But the thing that I was key at that the others really failed, I think, and what gave me a competitive edge is I wasn't just on when the cameras were on. I was on all the time. I knew I was in a competition every minute of every day, well, the whole time I was there. So instead of going home in the evening and sitting around on the sofa gossiping with the other candidates and watching TV in the night, I'd go to bed first. I'd be, you know, up first in the morning, the fastest dressed, and then, you know, they called me Mr. Serious in the house, the other candidates. And I think that's solely because I wanted the opportunity so much that I was so focused that I wasn't going to sit around and gossip about the football in the evening. I was going to get as much sleep as I could. I was going to get as much food in as I could and really recover and treat myself like an athlete, really. And I kept that edge and that competitive streak throughout. And I never forgot when I was talking in the bedrooms in the evening to the other contestants. I was very aware of what I was saying. I didn't want to give them too much knowledge they could use against me in the boardroom or on other tasks, because if you show too many weaknesses to the people, they'll use them against you when the cameras come back on. And I never forgot that, and I think it really, really helped me.
So did you do any groundwork? Did you like maybe get in touch with other Apprentice winners and ask them like what the strategies were? Did you do any sort of research in the?
Not really. I didn't, because I hadn't seen the show before. I didn't really know what I was in for, so I didn't contact any past contestants. I didn't really contact anyone who was going to be in my year. I just concentrated on watching myself and being aware of what I do and holding myself at the caliber I would in my business. And I think that came across really well, because when I went back and watched other series of the show, what I found as more and more seasons went on, the candidates had obviously watched the previous series and taken on personalities from people from the year before them because they got on well, and they started to pretend to be or act like people that wasn't necessarily who they are. And an act is impossible to keep up. As you said before, you can keep something up for an hour or a day, but you can't keep it up for near enough, 2 months. So a lot of people would come in, they'd have this bravado and this facade on for the first, few days. And then by the end, they'd change into a different person and get fired or, pretty much have a breakdown. Where if you're just yourself from the start, if you get fired for being yourself, well, it's not the right opportunity for you. But if you go all the way to the end, it is the right opportunity for you, and you haven't had to pretend to be anything you're not.
Right. And in terms of sort of habits, so a lot of entrepreneurs talk about like positive habits, visualization, journaling, meditation. What kind of habits do you have now that sort of support you in your entrepreneurial career?
I do a lot of exercise. I go for a lot of running, and I find that really helps. Because I get as stressed as everyone. I have as many bad days as anyone. people always say you seem to be really positive, and the answer is kind of what you said. I'm a big believer in positive thinking and visualization and goal setting. I've tried meditation. It wasn't really for me. I've tried reading. It's not for me. I've moved to audio books. One of the things that I really focus on is writing my goals down and having really firm goals and not losing sight of that. Exercising and leading what is a relatively healthy, happy life. And that's sort of the things that I do. I have, I'm very lucky with my girlfriend and my friends and family and the people I have around me that support me. And I think it all adds up.
I watched this interview with Alan Sugar. So I watched The Apprentice in like 2005, and then I actually haven't watched it for since then because I kind of was working on my own stuff, so I was focused on that instead. It's a great show, but I watched this interview with Alan Sugar in his home in California, and he just seemed like a very different person, like very grounded. Like he was exercising, he was doing all these other things. You work with him on a personal basis. How is he out not on screen?
I know the interview you're referring to, the Piers Morgan one in California.
Yeah,
and I think he's somewhere in the middle. Is my honest answer, because I think the man you see in the boardroom on The Apprentice is actually Alan Sugar, the businessman, the man at work, and the Lord Sugar I know, the man that I go in and meet with every week and talk about my business, Climb Online with, is the man in the boardroom. But I have no doubt, because I have seen that side that was in California, the family guy that does his exercise and is enjoying life. And I think that what he's been able to master is when he comes in and he's at work, he works hard, he's fearsome, and he's a ruthless businessman. But he's able to go and jump on his bike and spend time with his family and have nice things, which that has earned him as well. And I think he's got the balance in his life. They talk about work-life balance. I think that that's a man that's worked incredibly hard in the early years of his life, and he's really enjoying his life and his investments now.
So when you were standing there, and how many people watched the finale, by the way?
I think it's about 9.7 million.
Okay, so you're standing there, 9 million people watching, and then you won the show. How did that feel at the time?
It was quite overwhelming, really, because I think that's the point where I got separated from the other contestants. I was kind of one of all of the other contestants, and then when you become the winner, you kind of are separated and become your own entity. And being Lord Sugar's business partner, all the rest of it. I mean, the exposure is incredible. And, you go from not being, just being a normal fellow on the street to not being able to go into the supermarket because you get asked for 50 selfies, you're getting asked for autographs, business advice, to give to charity, to do all of these things. Literally overnight, I wasn't able to catch the tube the next day because the amount of attention and people just bombarding me in the street was insane. And it literally was a 24-hour transition. That obviously wears down a little bit as you get further away from the program. But as a normal guy, that takes a lot of adjusting to.
Okay. So after that, you don't want to be a celebrity or...
No. Celebrity life's not the life for me. It's more, I want to be a businessman. And that's the reason I chose, obviously there's a bit of me that wanted to go on the TV and, it's fun to get asked for a selfie and go and do a talk and things like this. This is what I really enjoy. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the reasoning I wanted to go on there is because I think Lord Sugar's a great businessman and a great mentor. And I think that, my business I had a good business plan and needed good investment, which I got. And it's all worked out really, really well. And I feel blessed in that respect.
So what is the best outcome of being on The Apprentice? What's the one best thing that's happened?
The best thing to come from it, and I always say this, if I could have the £250,000 or just the mentoring, I'd pick the mentoring from Lord Sugar. Because, as I often say in my talks, is if you go down with a recipe for a cake into the supermarket and get the ingredients, you'll get the cake. And what I'm doing now is I've been introduced into a circle of millionaires and billionaires and successful business people, and I'm with them on a daily basis talking about the ways they own and operate their businesses and the ways they motivate themselves and conduct themselves. And I'm around that every day. So if you hang out with those people, you listen to them and you act like them, you have to get the same results, really.
Absolutely. You become the average of the 4 or 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. And what the main thing the apprentice has done is not give me £250,000, because let's face it, in business, that's not a lot of money these days, especially in central London. But what it's given me is access to some of the top business people in the world to be able to call up, seek advice from, have a coffee with. And I'm as you say, the 5 people you spend the most time with, you become a reflection of those people. And hopefully it's rubbing off on me.
So you had a business plan, and then you launched Clim Online. But before that, I actually looked at what the other people that have been on The Apprentice are doing now.
Yep.
And I think you are the one that's made the most money in the first year. Not that we're comparing, but that is very impressive.
Thank you.
So you went on the show. You know you wanted to win, and then you already knew that if I win, I'm going to build this business. Now let's talk about Clim Online and why you built it and what it's all about.
Yeah, so I mean, Climb Online, and that's a good point. Is no business from The Apprentice had turned over £1 million in its first year, we finished the year with 24 staff, 1.6 million turnover, and have been the most successful business to come from that apprentice program in its first year, and that is all down to the hard work of my team. Really, I surrounded myself with an incredible team, and what the £250,000 allowed me to do was hire the best people. So I'd been in the industry already for a few years, so I had good connections. And what I was able to do is go and get the best software and the best people. But what the profile of The Apprentice allowed me to do was get partnerships with Microsoft and Google at the very highest level, and get support and contacts, which I would have never been able to get just as a normal guy. And that's where that profile from the show really, really helped me and really, really boosted the business. So we started on the 5th of January last year. We signed up over 200 customers. We offer search engine optimization, the theory of getting people for keywords which are relative to their industry up the search engines, and also paid media, things like YouTube advertising, Google AdWords, display, remarketing, all of these types of services, as well as web development. So we only offer really 3 core services, and social media as a nice sort of sweetener on top. And we just got it right, really. I kept the business plan simple, I kept the services simple, and I hired the best people. And with that profile from the show, we were able to just really capitalize on the sales growth in the first year and keep the costs low. And it helped me make a profitable business to expand in 2016.
So you guys work with corporations mostly?
Corporations, yeah. Anywhere from sort of a small business, we've got a couple of 1 and 2 man bands that spend £400 or £500 a month, up to some of the biggest companies in the country. We work with Groupon, the discount voucher company. Beewise Insurance, one of the biggest insurers in the country, and we've just got so many vast array of industry customers that spend. One of our customers spends nearly £1 million a month on advertising. Our smallest customer spends a few hundred. So it's really good to go in, and I've been out and met a lot of our customers and seen just such an array of people going through different things, and I've learned an awful lot.
And are you currently the sole owner, or do you own the company with partners? What's been the strategy?
Just myself and Lord Sugar. So I own 50%. Lord Sugar owns 50%.
Okay, cool. And what is your plan for future growth? Because right now there's a lot of manual stuff going on. You're leveraging your business on talent. Am I right? Or
Yeah. Talent and reputation, really. And our industry is one that outsources a lot of its talent, right? But you look at myself, I've employed all people from the country which we're located in. So I'm giving back not only in tax, but in salary and employment. We don't outsource anything. It's all of the work is completed in-house. All of our materials and tools are bought from this country. So we're trying to do business. Not only are we, got the best talent, but we're giving back to the country we're in, and we're providing a good service. And there's a big difference from somebody who does an SEO campaign with another agency and pays £500, but it's all being done out in Mumbai. And then pay £500 to me and it's being done in Shoreditch in London by a specialist. Not saying, outsourcing is wrong, but I'm saying, we're not making as much money as these other companies because we're doing it the right way. There's too much outsourcing, there's too much cost minimization in big businesses and tax cutting, which is fine at these top levels, but we're doing business the right way and the ethical way there's a lot to be said for it.
And in terms of the percentage of revenue, so a lot of companies stay small because they don't spend enough on marketing, and something that's happened to me many times is that I've spent like $2,000 and I haven't gotten the return that I want to see, and then oftentimes I quit that campaign and I'll try something else.
Yeah.
So I guess it's two questions, like percentage-wise, how much of turnover should we allocate to marketing, and how long do we have to commit to a campaign to see it work?
That's a challenging question because it's really based on industry. It really, really is. And I've always worked my business. I'm a bit luckier about my profile, my public profile, which I have for my company, which does help us. There's no doubt about it. But I spend 5% of our turnover monthly on advertising. And I have a PR company on top of that as well. So for me, it's about not, some months I've spent, 15 grand, 16 grand and had nothing in. Other months I've spent 15,000 and had, written 45 grand worth of business off that advertising budget. So it's about being consistent. The main things is you need to pick a number like 5% and be consistent. With your budget. You need to make sure it's the right type of advertising for your industry. You've got a good campaign, you're working with a good supplier, and you're able to maintain it for at least 6 months.
And are you now the main salesperson for Clim Online?
I used to be, not anymore. So for the first 12 months, I was the main. For the first 3 months, I was the only salesperson. For the latter 8 months of last year, I was one of a sales force of 5 people. Now I'm not really actively selling. We crossed. It's a really difficult position. The business crossed a certain point where I think we got big, really, and it comes to a point where I need to be in the office with my managers. I've got sort of 6 team leaders. We've got over 200 customers now. We've got over 30 suppliers. We've got 2 offices. And it sounds all great on paper, but this stuff takes a lot of management and a lot to keep an eye on, just doing one-to-ones, signing deals with suppliers, meeting with the PR companies and the advertising agencies we work with, meeting with the board of directors for the company. I'm probably, of a 5-day week, I'm probably out with the sales guys 2 or 3 days, and I'm in the office 2 days a week now, where I used to be out on the road 5 days a week selling.
Why do you have such a big focus on using PR?
Because I didn't believe in the benefit of PR before I won the Apprentice, if I'm completely honest. In anything I'd done before, I'd never used PR. I'd used traditional advertising or online advertising, and that was it. And now I use traditional online and PR, and I'm seeing significant results. I must be honest. If you do the right PR, which is industry relative, and you're consistent again, I mean, we're seeing tremendous results from PR, not only because, of Lord Sugar and myself, but the ways in which we approach it. I write guest journals in certain magazines and columns in certain newspapers on digital marketing. I appear in industry relative magazines as an expert on search. And that version of PR is really working for us.
Would you say that is the smartest thing that small businesses can do, is really focus on that, like more PR, more sort of content marketing? Basically what we're doing right now is content marketing.
Yeah. I mean, if I could go back again, this is all I do, is content marketing flat out. Because the more you can get yourself out there as an expert in your field, it comes back to what I was talking about all about at the start, about confidence, generating leads, advertising. It's all about the more you can get in front of people and different audiences, being an expert in your field and in business, people will trust in your brand and your product and in you. And the biggest thing with any product is trust in the brand and in that product. And once you have that, the sales and the leads will start to come in. And once you can get your product out, if it's any good, sales will breed more sales. You'll get more of the good stuff.
So what is your goal in like 3 years for the business?
So on my forecast this year, I'm hoping to do over 4 million with Clim Online in sales. So we go from 1.6 to 4 million in our second year. We want to open a second office next year, either in Dubai or Australia. And we want to continue to open offices. We're looking at a regional office in the north of England, in the UK at the moment. And then we're going to start to go abroad. I think there's massive opportunity because the quality of the product we are delivering here is exceptional, and the UK is very advanced. I could easily go to somewhere like, Australia or the UAE, deliver what we deliver here, and they wouldn't have seen anything at the quality we have.
Fantastic. So if we want to find out more about you, just go to climonline.co.uk.
Absolutely. If you want to find out more about us, our services, the costs, or meet myself and the team, it's just clim-online.co.uk, or you can find myself, Mark Wright, on Twitter, or Clim Online on Twitter as well.
Fantastic. Mark, thank you so much for being on Hardcore MBA.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.